The night of April 2, 1865, was a symphony of chaos and fire. As the Union Army closed its grip on Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederate States was a furnace of desperation. But amidst the panicked evacuation, a heavy, iron-bound train rattled out of the Richmond and Danville Railroad station under a veil of absolute secrecy. On board was not just the fleeing leadership of a collapsing rebellion, but a cargo that would spark a century and a half of obsession, murder, and mystery: the Confederate treasury. This is not merely a story of lost coins. It is the chronicle of the Knights of the Golden Circle, KGC, a clandestine shadow organization that many believe never truly surrendered. It is a tale of a second civil war funded from the shadows, and a fortune in gold that remains, perhaps, buried beneath the very soil of the American landscape. The architects of the Shadow Empire. To understand the gold, one must first understand the men who swore to protect it. Long before the first shot was fired at Fort Sumter, a visionary physician and adventurer named George W.L. Bickley founded the Knights of the Golden Circle in 1854. His goal was as audacious as it was dark: to create a golden circle of slave-holding territories encompassing the southern United States, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. The KGC was modeled after the Freemasons, with elaborate rituals, secret handshakes, and a strict hierarchy. By the time the Civil War broke out, they had evolved into the most powerful secret society in American history, with tens of thousands of members, including, allegedly, high-ranking generals, politicians, and even the man who would eventually kill Abraham Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth. As the war turned against the South, the KGC's mission shifted. They were no longer just expansionists. They became the guardians of the cause. If the Confederacy were to fall on the battlefield, the KGC would ensure it rose again from the ashes. And for that, they needed more than just ideology. They needed a war chest that would last for generations. The Great Disappearance, April 1865, when Jefferson Davis fled Richmond. He was accompanied by a treasure train carrying a fortune in gold bullion, silver coins, and Mexican pesos. Historians generally agree that the treasury contained roughly $500,000 at the time, in 1865 value. However, legend and KGC lore suggest the actual amount, bolstered by private donations from wealthy Southern families and secret KGC reserves, was closer to tens of millions. The train moved south through the Carolinas. In Washington, Georgia, the trail went cold. While some records show the treasury was officially disbanded and paid out to remaining soldiers, the numbers never quite added up. Large portions of the bullion simply vanished into the Georgia woods and the South Carolina swamps. The conspiracy posits that the gold wasn't lost, it was cached. Under the direction of the KGC's inner circle, the treasure was divided into smaller lots and buried in repositories across the country, from the Appalachian Mountains to the deserts of the Southwest. Jesse James, the KGC's treasurer. One of the most startling chapters of this historical mystery involves the legendary outlaw Jesse James. While popular history paints Jesse as a simple bank robber or a Robin Hood of the West, KGC researchers offer a more calculated alternative. They claim Jesse James was a high-level initiate of the Knights of the Golden Circle. His robberies weren't born of personal greed, but were part of a systematic taxation on northern banks and railroads to replenish the KGC's underground treasury. It is said that Jesse James used his share of the loot to fund the Sentinels, secret caretakers tasked with guarding the buried Confederate gold until the Second Revolution was called. The evidence cited is often cryptic. Many of the James Younger gang's robberies took place near known KGC strongholds. Furthermore, Jesse's uncanny ability to evade capture for nearly 2 decades suggests he had a sophisticated network of safe houses and lookouts, exactly what a society like the KGC would provide. The language of the Sentinels, ciphers in the wilderness: if the gold is real, why hasn't it been found? The answer lies in the KGC's legendary security system. They didn't use paper maps that could be stolen or burned. Instead, they used the land itself. Across the United States, specifically in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, treasure hunters have discovered what they call hoot owl trees and ghost marks. These are ancient trees intentionally bent or scarred when they were saplings to point toward specific landmarks. Large boulders were carved with symbols: turtles, snakes, crosses, and hearts. In the world of KGC symbology, a turtle might indicate the proximity of water or a slow path to a cache. A snake often points the direction of the gold, with its head indicating the final location. Horseshoe marks might denote the number of miles or chains to the next marker. The most terrifying aspect of these repositories, however, is the death traps. Stories abound of seekers finding hidden shafts only to be met with sophisticated triggers, collapsing ceilings, poison needles, or water traps designed to drown anyone who didn't know the key to the vault. The KGC intended for this gold to be recovered only by those who possessed the secret knowledge passed down through their lineage. The 21st century mystery. Dent's run the conspiracy isn't just a relic of the 19th century. It remains an active investigation for the U.S. government. In 2018, the FBI conducted a clandestine excavation in Dent's Run, Pennsylvania. They were searching for a legendary 1863 shipment of Confederate gold that had allegedly gone missing on its way to the Philadelphia Mint. A father and son treasure hunting team, who had spent years studying KGC lore and using high-tech gravimeters, tipped off the Bureau. They claimed their instruments showed a massive metallic mass, roughly 7 to 9 tons of gold. The FBI's involvement was shrouded in secrecy. They blocked off the area, conducted the dig, and then abruptly left, claiming they found nothing. However, the treasure hunters and local residents reported seeing a fleet of armored trucks leaving the site in the middle of the night. Did the government finally seize a KGC repository? Or is the treasure of the night still waiting for its rightful sentinels? The legacy of the Golden Circle. Is the KGC gold a true historical reality or a comforting myth for a defeated people? The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. While the dream of a Golden Circle empire died with the surrender at Appomattox, the financial irregularities of the Confederate treasury are a matter of public record. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in 19th century gold are factually unaccounted for. The KGC represents a uniquely American brand of mystery, one where the scars of the Civil War are etched into the trees and stones of the frontier. It is a story of men who refused to believe the war was over, and who spent their lives building a labyrinth of secrets that still puzzles historians and adventurers today. Whether the gold is still out there, or was long ago moved into the vaults of modern banks, the legend of the Knights of the Golden Circle serves as a reminder that history is often written in two versions, the one we read in textbooks and the one buried 6 feet deep under a hoot owl tree. The Silent Guardians. Life of a sentinel. Imagine a man living in a small cabin in the Arkansas hills in the year 1910. To his neighbors, he is a quiet farmer, perhaps a veteran of the war who kept to himself. But every night, this man patrols a specific perimeter of worthless, rocky land. He isn't looking for coyotes. He is watching for anyone carrying a shovel or a transit level. These were the Sentinels. According to KGC researchers like Roy William Rausch and Bob Brewer, the organization established a system of hereditary guards. When a sentinel grew old, he would choose a son or a nephew, initiate him into the secret rites, and pass on the template, the master key to the local caches. The commitment was absolute. There are accounts of families who lived on top of millions of dollars in gold bullion, suffering through the Great Depression in literal poverty, yet never taking a single coin. To them, the money wasn't theirs. It was the resurrection fund for a southern empire that they believed would one day rise again. The mystery of Iron Mountain, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the KGC's massive wealth, involves the Iron Mountain Repository in Oklahoma. In the early 20th century, strange occurrences were reported in the Wichita Mountains. Local legends spoke of men in gray seen drifting through the mists long after the last Confederate soldier should have been dead. In the 1970s, a group of researchers found a series of complex carvings on the granite faces of the mountains. Following the turtle symbols were the head, feet, and tail of a stone-carved turtle pointed to different legs of a mathematical trail. They discovered a sealed ventilation shaft hidden under a massive slab of rock. As they descended, they didn't find gold. They found something more chilling, a chamber filled with 19th century weapons preserved in cosmoline and stacks of encoded ledgers. The ledgers didn't list names, they listed coordinates. It became clear that Iron Mountain wasn't just a bank, it was a military headquarters waiting for a war that never came. The Albert Pike connection. The mastermind no story of the KGC is complete without mentioning Albert Pike. A Confederate general, a genius linguist, and the sovereign grand commander of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Pike is often cited as the chief architect of the KGC's post-war strategy. Conspiracy theorists suggest that Pike used his vast knowledge of esoteric symbol to design the KGC's treasure maps. Unlike standard maps, these were layered. A single carving on a tree might mean one thing at sunrise, and something entirely different when the shadow of a nearby peak hit it at 3:00 p.m. on the autumn equinox. This celestial mapping made it nearly impossible for an outsider to stumble upon a cache. You didn't just need to know where to look, you needed to know when to look. The 1934 Gold Act and the secret move, a fascinating twist in the narrative, occurs during the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration. In 1933-1934, the U.S. government passed the Gold Reserve Act, making it illegal for private citizens to own gold. The official reason was to stabilize the economy during the Depression. However, KGC enthusiasts have a different theory. They believe the government had finally cracked some of the KGC codes and realized how much bullion was sitting in private hands and underground vaults. The Gold Act was a legal raid to force the KGC out of the shadows. Legend has it that during this time, the Sentinels moved many of the major caches. This led to the Trail of Tears for treasure hunters, finding empty vaults that showed signs of being cleared out in the 1930s, with nothing left behind but a single mocking silver coin or a rusted horseshoe. The modern hunt, LiDAR and ghost lore today, the hunt has gone high-tech. Modern treasure hunters use LiDAR, light detection, and ranging to see through dense forest canopies, revealing man-made mounds and trenches that are invisible to the naked eye. In places like the hills of Kentucky and the swamps of Florida, these scans have revealed perfect geometric shapes, circles and squares, buried deep underground. But the curse of the KGC remains. Many who get too close to the truth report strange phenomena: electronic interference, high-end metal detectors and cameras malfunctioning near suspected sites. The Gray Man, sightings of a figure in a broad-brimmed hat watching researchers from a distance, disappearing the moment he is approached. Legal walls. Diggers often find themselves tied up in sudden, mysterious lawsuits or government interventions the moment they produce evidence of a hit. Conclusion. A history that refuses to stay buried. The KGC Confederate Gold Conspiracy is more than just a search for riches. It is a shadow history of the United States, a story of a secret society that managed to operate a state within a state for decades. Whether the gold is a multi-billion-dollar reality or a legend designed to keep the spirit of the Old South alive, the marks on the trees and the hollows in the mountains remain. The Knights of the Golden Circle built a labyrinth, and even now, 160 years later, we are still wandering through its corridors, looking for the light of the gold that was meant to change the world. To truly grasp the magnitude of the KGC's operation, we must step away from the abstract legends and look at the terrifyingly precise mechanics of their concealment. This wasn't the work of frantic soldiers burying loot in a panic. This was the work of engineers, surveyors, and Masonic scholars. At the heart of this mystery lies the code of the turtle, the anatomy of a stone sentinel if you were to walk through the Ouachita Mountains of Oklahoma or the deep timberlands of Texas. You might encounter a turtle rock. To the untrained eye, it's a natural formation, a weathered boulder resembling a tortoise. But to a KGC initiate, it was a high-tech GPS system made of stone. The turtle was the most common KGC marker because of its longevity and the wealth of information its body parts could convey. A tilted head indicated the vertical direction of the cache, whether it was buried deep or hidden in a cave above. The legs were directional vectors. If the right front leg was shorter than the left, it told the seeker to turn at a specific degree. But the real genius lay in the shell maps. Frequently, the scoots, The squares on the turtle's back were carved with tiny, almost invisible symbols, moons, stars, or numbers. When overlaid with a transparent template, a secret map on glass or vellum held by a high-ranking KGC officer, these symbols would align with landmarks in the distance, creating a geometric X on the landscape that no one else could see. The mystery of the Cora Picket map, one of the most famous breakthroughs in KGC lore, came from a woman named Cora Picket. In the early 20th century, she came into possession of a series of cryptic maps that supposedly belonged to a former Confederate officer. Unlike the romanticized treasure maps of fiction, these were complex mathematical grids. Researchers who studied Pickett's papers discovered something startling. The KGC hadn't just buried gold. They had mapped the entire southern United States into districts. Each district had a mother lode repository and several smaller satellite caches. The satellites were used to fund local operations, bribery, legal fees, or the stockpiling of weapons, while the mother lode remained untouched for the Great Uprising. This led to the discovery of the cross of the KGC, when researchers plotted known KGC activity and cache locations on a map of the United States. They found they weren't random. They formed a massive, perfect cross spanning hundreds of miles, with its center point located near the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. This wasn't just hiding money. This was an occult binding of the land itself. The legend of the Red River, hoard perhaps the most heart-pounding story of a near discovery, took place along the banks of the Red River. In the late 19th century, a group of cowboys, who were almost certainly KGC sentinels, were seen hauling heavy crates into a limestone cavern that was subsequently dynamited shut. Decades later, a treasure hunter using a primitive metal detector in the 1950s claimed to have found the entrance. He described a chamber lined with bars of gold stacked like cordwood, but he also described something that stopped him in his tracks. A tripwire made of braided horsehair connected to a massive overhead slab. Before he could disarm it, the ground began to shift. He barely escaped with his life as the cavern collapsed, swallowed once again by the shifting sands of the Red River. To this day, that specific location remains one of the most sought-after golden holes in America. But every time a modern expedition gets close, the river floods, or the land ownership suddenly changes hands to a private trust whose beneficiaries are never named. The bloodline, who holds the keys today? The most haunting question of the KGC conspiracy is the organization still alive? While the Knights of the Golden Circle officially faded from history books around 1916, many believe they simply evolved. The massive wealth they guarded didn't just sit in the ground. As the 20th century progressed, much of it was allegedly laundered into legitimate businesses, railroads, oil, and eventually, the burgeoning military-industrial complex. Some researchers point to the deep state theories of American politics, suggesting that the KGC's Resurrection Fund was eventually used not to restart the Civil War, but to influence American policy from the shadows. The Sentinels of today aren't men in cabins with shotguns. They are men in suits who manage untraceable assets passed down through generations of Southern families. The final mystery, the Copperhead ciphers. Before we conclude this exploration, we must look at the Copperhead ciphers. Throughout the North during the war, Southern sympathizers, known as Copperheads, used KGC codes to communicate. These codes were found in the margins of newspapers and hidden in the lyrics of popular songs. Even today, some believe that the gold was never the end goal. The gold was merely the bait. The true treasure of the KGC was a set of documents, proof of high-level treason by Northern politicians, including members of Lincoln's own cabinet. This blackmail hoard was supposedly buried alongside the bullion, intended to be used to collapse the Union government from within. The KGC Confederate gold isn't just a story of wealth, it's a story of a hidden architecture of power. It's a reminder that beneath the surface of the official history, there are currents of secrecy that run deep and dark. To bring this odyssey to its final, chilling conclusion, we must confront the most controversial secret of the Knights of the Golden Circle: the belief that their most famous soldier never actually died, and the terrifying price paid by those who finally found what was hidden. The immortal outlaw, The Jesse James faked death. The history books tell us that on April 3, 1882, the coward Robert Ford shot Jesse James in the back of the head, while the outlaw was straightening a picture on his wall. But in the world of the KGC, this was the greatest piece of theater ever staged. According to KGC initiates, Jesse James was a high knight and the primary field agent for their multi-million-dollar banking operations. By 1882, Jesse was too famous. He was a liability to the secret society's long-term survival. The theory suggests that a lookalike, a man named Charlie Bigelow, was killed and buried in Jesse's place, while the real Jesse James assumed a new identity, J. Frank Dalton. In the late 1940s, a 100-year-old man named J. Frank Dalton emerged in Lawton, Oklahoma, claiming to be the real Jesse James. He possessed intimate knowledge of the KGC's template, mapping system, and spoke of the gold not as a thief, but as a custodian. He claimed he had spent the last 60 years moving gold from vulnerable sites to Level 1 repositories, the most secure vaults in the KGC network. If Dalton was telling the truth, it meant the KGC had a living director well into the 20th century, ensuring the treasure remained out of the hands of the U.S. government. The Devil's Punch Bowl, a case study in death traps for those who didn't have Jesse James's keys. The search for the gold was often a death sentence. One of the most feared KGC sites is known as the Devil's Punch Bowl in Mississippi. In the 1980s, an anonymous treasure hunter, codenamed Red, claimed to have used a specialized magnetometer to locate a deep metallic signature in this region. As his team excavated a vertical shaft, they encountered a series of deterrents that proved the KGC's engineering genius. 1. The false floor. At 12 feet, they found a layer of hand-placed flat stones. Beneath them wasn't gold, but a pocket of poisonous methane gas and decomposed organic matter, designed to asphyxiate anyone without proper ventilation. 2. The weighted slabs. After clearing the gas, they found a secondary stone seal. However, the seal was connected to a dead man's switch. If the center stone was lifted without first bracing the side walls, a 4-ton slab of granite from the ceiling would drop, crushing everything in the shaft. 3. The liquid trap. Most terrifyingly, many KGC repositories were built near underground aquifers. The code of the turtle often involved tapping a nearby spring. If a digger breached the main vault without turning a specific shutoff, stone, often hidden hundreds of yards away, the vault would instantaneously flood, drowning the hunter and burying the gold under tons of silt and water. The shift from gold bullion to global influence as we reach the present day, the mystery of the KGC takes its most profound turn. Most historians believe that if the gold existed, it isn't in the ground anymore, but it didn't vanish. Between 1900 and 1920, the United States saw a massive surge in industrial growth. Secretive private trusts and family foundations began appearing, seemingly out of nowhere, with millions of dollars in capital. Conspiracy researchers argue that the KGC realized a second civil war, fought with muskets, was impossible. Instead, they moved their treasure into the stock market and political lobbying. The Golden Circle was no longer a geographic territory to be conquered. It was a financial circle of influence. The gold was melted down, laundered through European banks, and brought back to America as legitimate investment capital. In this view, the KGC didn't lose. They simply bought the world they couldn't conquer. The final resting place. The legend of the King Cash. Despite the theories of financial laundering, legend persists that one King Cash remains. Located somewhere in the Wichita Mountains of Oklahoma, this final repository is said to hold the crown jewels of the Confederacy, not just gold, but the original Great Seal of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis's private papers, and the Resurrection Fund intended for a global catastrophe. The site is allegedly guarded by the Phantom Sentinels. Locals still tell stories of hikers who wander too far into certain canyons and are met by men in modern tactical gear who politely, but firmly, tell them they are trespassing on private property, even though the land is technically public. Conclusion. The Secret in the Soil, the story of the KGC Confederate Gold, is the ultimate American myth. It is a tale of a nation that could not fully heal, a secret society that would not fully die, and a fortune that may still be waiting for the right person to decode the signs. Whether the gold is sitting in a flooded cavern in Arkansas, buried under a sidewalk in Richmond, or circulating in the digital ledgers of Wall Street, the Knights of the Golden Circle achieved their goal. They created a mystery so deep and so alluring that they ensured the lost cause would never truly be forgotten. As the sun sets over the American West, the shadows of the hoot owl trees grow long, pointing toward the earth. They are silent witnesses to a history we are only beginning to uncover. The gold is not just metal. It is the ghost of a different America whispering from the dark, waiting for the next seeker to follow the turtle's gaze. Thanks for watching.